welcome to all the participants. And on behalf of the Deccan Chamber of Commerce, Industries and Agriculture and Argo Talents, who are our partner for this event, I welcome you all to this event, which is very, very relevant in today's scenario. Deccan Chamber, you have already seen in the corporate film, which we played a little while ago, is the most active chamber in and around this industrial belt. We are into 26th year of our inception and have done a reasonably good job on putting up a lot of issues of the industries on various platforms and getting relief to the members. Been very, very active, and the chamber plays a very meaningful role in sorting out various issues of the industries, but also bringing the industries together on common platform to ensure better learning at various levels, be it at the junior management level, mid-management, or top management. So far as the today's session goes, let me say that last year at around same time, if somebody would have told me that, look here, say in 6 to 9 months, you won't be able to travel overseas. All the flight will be stopped. The international flights will not be running for about 5-6 months. The trains will be stopped for 5 to 6 months. The domestic flights will be stopped. Offices will be closed. Shops will be closed. Malls will be closed. Believe me, I would have laughed. I would have had a hearty laugh that this kind of situation can never come in. Why? Because I know even if a war would have broken out, even if a war would have taken place, that is the worst kind of calamity which I could have foreseen at that point of time. Otherwise, the rest of all the calamities are regional, whether it is cyclone, flood, or those kind of things will affect a part of the country or maybe most part of the country, but not the entire country. Our country is so vast. But to think that the international flights will stop landing, the trains will not run. It was something which I have not seen. Even when the 71 war had taken place, the trains were still running, the flights were still going on. The normal, we were observing blackout, this, that, siren, all those things were there for 14, 15 days of war and maybe 2 months thereafter. But not a situation which I am seeing today. It is unprecedented. I have not seen this, and so I believe most of you have not seen anything of this sort in your life. But today, we are facing this scenario. And in this scenario, this current topic of e-learning becomes very, very important for all the business leaders and the HR leaders. We know that, okay, training is the classroom training. Anything we do, we can't think of that without bringing people together, without there being a speaker, there being physical interaction. There would be training program. Yes, there were such kind of training programs and webinars conducted, but this was not a rule. It was exception. Yes, this kind of thing did happen where the participants were from the different location or maybe different countries. But to have it as a rule for a factory, to have a webinar of this kind was never thought of. But we have landed in a situation today that yes, this program we are doing through a webinar. In normal sense, we would have hired a place. Argo Talent and Deccan Chamber would have hired a hotel or hired a place where all of you will be coming. We will be having starting with a fellowship, with a tea, thereafter the program, the tea break, all those kind of things would have been in the normal. But that is not the normal. That was the earlier normal. The new normal is different. And when you are existing and functioning in new normal, there are new challenges which we have to take care of. The new challenges are this, that I don't think that in coming time as well, you will see the same kind of physical classroom, same kind of physical training, and same kind of instructor standing in flesh and blood before you, talking to you, interacting with you. The new norm is going to be the e-learning. And that is where this seminar, when Mr. Govind proposed to me, I readily accepted because I knew this is the need of the hour. You need to continue with the training. You can't stop the training because the classroom trainings are not there, because people can't assemble. the trainings will happen. And we have to also make sure that the effectiveness of the training is not lost off. The training remains as effective as it was in the earlier era. So that again is a very focus area here. And next very important thing is to prepare faculties. Here, we are also able to focus on preparing the faculties who will be taking such training. And the beauty of these trainings are that this training can be conducted at the convenience of the learner and the teacher both. The HR need not have a program where drawing people from the different department and conducting a program where at time your head of the department will say, no, it is a year-end pressure. We can't spare people for the training. We have to do the clearance. This month is very tight. Here, people can learn in their own time. They can put on the module and do it on the weekend. They can do it in their own time. Same way the faculties also can learn the skill in their own time. And the HR department, the role becomes very, very important to see and assess that the people who have undergone a training have really undergone the training, have learned. And similarly, when we assess the faculty and we tick mark that yes, they are fit to be a faculty, again, we have to assess them. So our role as a HR leader and a business leader in the new scenario is going to be very, very important. And the e-learning is really important in the sense because this is the new normal. This is how the next few years are going to be. I don't foresee that at least the next 2 years we are going to have what we had earlier. And maybe in 2 years you realize that this system could be a better system in some sense, and we may have a mix of earlier and new, and that could be another scenario maybe, but that is after 2 years. So with that, I will conclude. You have very, very experienced and very expert and talented people sitting on the panel. We have Abhijit, we have Mr. Jagirdar, you have Dr. Ujjal Bhattacharya, and my Mr. Govind. I take pride that he was my student in Symbiosis once for one point of time. I have been his faculty when he was doing MBA here, and he is doing very, very well in this aspect. So I compliment him for picking a very good topic and moving in this direction, which is need of the hour. With this, I hand it over back to San. Please proceed. Thank you very much for listening to me patiently. Thanks. Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Srivastava. Like we discussed, digital learning is still evolving all around the world, right? So before we get into the panel discussion on the future of learning, for the benefit of the audience here, we would like to take you through a small deck which will introduce you to the world of digital learning. The COVID situation has, in a way, thrown a spanner in the works for all of us. It has challenged conventional learning methods and has pushed the industry to identify alternate channels of learning. And digital learning happens to be at the forefront, right? But is COVID really behind this push for digital learning? Not really, but it has definitely accelerated the implementation of digital learning. Let me substantiate this with a few facts and figures that were published by LinkedIn earlier this year and in their 2020 Workplace Learning Report. This report came pre-COVID, and if you look at some of the statistics here, you will actually understand what I'm trying to say. If you look at it, L&D professionals expected to spend more on online learning globally. 57% of them said that they would spend more on online learning. Instructor-led budgeting, instructor-led training budgets have been decreasing, while online budgets were set to increase. L&D professionals are looking to spend more time on online learning than instructor-led training. Likewise, if you look specifically, countries like Germany, India, and Australia have been talking about more of self-directed learning with online learning solutions. So while COVID has accelerated the process, the world was definitely moving towards digital learning. The future of learning is digital, right? So what is digital learning? Digital learning is learning that is facilitated by technology that gives the learner control over time, place, path, and pace. Time. So if you look at time, learning is no longer specific to a particular time. Internet access devices like smartphones, tablets, laptops have given learners the ability to learn anytime. Likewise, learning is no longer restricted to the classroom. Again, with smartphones, laptops, you have, as a learner, you have the ability to learn anywhere, everywhere, and whenever you want. Likewise, learning is no longer restricted to prescribed or mandated trainings. Interactive and adaptive platforms allow learners to learn in their own style, making learning very personal and highly engaging. Learning, again, is no longer restricted to the pace of an entire group of learners. Interactive and adaptive platforms also allow learners to learn at their own pace, spending more or less time to achieve the same level of learning. Digital learning requires a combination of technology, digital content, and instruction. So now we look at certain key elements. When you talk about digital learning, you'll hear a few terminologies very frequently, right? So one is about content creation and aggregation. Digital learning platforms actually allow you and give you the freedom to create your own content in different formats. Likewise, you can also create your own assessments. You can create your own certifications. Similarly, you can aggregate content from different service providers, either the content that you've built internally or from your learning partners, subject matter experts, and your preferred web content as well. So that could be your massive open online courses, to video blogs, to video platforms, to articles, and to podcasts. You can get or aggregate all of this content onto one platform, which enables the users to learn at their own pace and time. Similarly, you will hear about virtual classrooms. Virtual classrooms are nothing but a medium where you can replicate your classrooms virtually. Like in an instructor-led training, here the facilitator can create content online itself and create really engaging content like Q&As, polls, puzzles, etc. Digital platforms today also provide you to replicate instructor-led classrooms, in the sense that where in those trainings you create breakout sessions. You can create breakout rooms on a digital platform, so you can assign tasks to smaller groups and then make them reassemble back into the main group. Similarly, you can create whiteboards for the learner as well as the facilitator to ensure that learning happens. Similarly, job aids and notes can be taken online. You can all download everything by the click of a button. So everything's available on your desktop. You can come back at a later date and revisit the same notes from your virtual classroom. Another terminology is social learning. Now, social learning is based on Albert Bandura's theory that learning is a cognitive process that takes place in a social setup and generally happens through observation, discussion, or direct instruction. Digital platforms allow you to create social learning through discussion forums where employees can ask questions, get answers from within the organization. It also enables you to ensure knowledge transfer or knowledge sharing happens quickly, and it also promotes collaborative learning. You could create organizational wikis. So an organizational wiki is similar like a Wikipedia, a great source of knowledge for everybody in the organization, especially for the new joiners. When they join in, they get to understand the organization and work processes much more easily. And if anybody in the organization is looking to build new skills and capabilities, they could make use of the organizational wiki. You could leverage expert knowledge from within the organization as well as externally through mentoring and coaching. So mentors can impart their knowledge to employees within the organization. And you could also create knowledge and share knowledge through these platforms. Similarly, to encourage learning, you could create gamification. You can't force anybody to learn, but you can definitely give them the right tools and incentives to learn so that they don't waste on the opportunities that are made available to them by the organization. Another terminology that is used frequently is immersive learning. Immersive learning is nothing but the process of learning through simulation or an artificial environment. The learner here gets to learn, gets completely immersed into the situation or the scenario and can learn as if he or she is really experiencing that in an actual environment. It replicates all kinds of possible scenarios and helps in teaching specific techniques and skills to people. VR and AR is a technology that at one point in time seemed very experimental in nature, but quickly is gaining mainstream popularity thanks to growing number of successful implementations by a lot of organizations. Companies from BMW to Walmart to JetBlue to Verizon are using immersive learning for dozens of trainings and are seeing great impact, very measurable impact. I have embedded a video on this slide, but I won't take you through it at this moment of time because we've kind of been there's a slight delay. But what I will do is I will share this deck and you'll be able to see this video. The video is of the shop floor at a BMW factory and how BMW factory workers are using AR, are using virtual reality to actually learn. You can view this video when I share the deck with everyone. The other terminology is adaptive learning. Adaptive learning is nothing but the Netflixization of learning. Adaptive learning enables every learner to learn based on their own learning paths, which are made specifically based on their strengths, their weaknesses, their learning goals, their career aspirations, and engagement patterns. So if somebody likes to learn through watching videos, he or she would only see a lot of video content in terms of learning. So it's about providing personalized content vis-a-vis a one-size-fits-all kind of learning experience. It's highly learner-centric, makes use of AI and ML, and creates highly personalized experiences, which in turn results in much better learning results. Micro-learning is another terminology that's closely associated with digital learning. Micro-learning is nothing but a bite-sized approach to learning. If you look at millennials and Gen Z, they prefer learning in very small units, right? They would like to see content which can be finished in 2 minutes or less. They would like content which is very topical or helps in solving a particular problem that they're facing. And they would like to learn as and when they require. So they would like to search for a particular topic or a particular answer that they're looking for. Technology today can crawl through immense troves of content and extract relevant information for the user. So now it's possible to create consumable instructional content that's accessible to the learner at the moment they need to learn, basically learning in the flow of work. Right? And finally, out of all this, what is the impact that learning makes on business, right? You could use either the Kirkpatrick model or the Phillips model of learning evaluation to see the impact that learning makes. If you look at these methodologies, it says that on completion of any training, you take quick feedback from a learner on the content, on the trainer, on the ease of understanding, relevance of the content, etc. And then a few days later or a week later, you could run a quick quiz or an assessment to measure as to how much information was effectively absorbed by the learner. Similarly, this can be mapped to the learning objectives to see whether there's been any delta in terms of learning, in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills. And then periodically, it would be a good idea to go back and check whether there has been any implementation of learning in terms of technical capabilities. In terms of the behavioral skills, you can go back and see if there's if behaviors of the learner has changed. And this can be done by checking back on the managers or other stakeholders working with the learner. And finally, at the end of the year, it's very important to see whether learning has made any impact on business. Right? So you could evaluate ROI, you could evaluate business impact, and to see how learning has made an impact on business performance. You could look at that at an individual level. You could also look at that at a team level as well as a functional level. right? So is learning important? Absolutely. More learning is always good. And if you look at LinkedIn again, shared this in terms of learning, that heavy learners typically are more likely to feel more confident in their work. Similarly, they're likely to take additional responsibilities. They would know where they want to go in their careers very clearly. They'll feel more productive and successful at work. They are more likely to be happy than most at work and are likely to be less stressed at work. So more learning is always better, and digital learning allows learners to learn as much as they want, whenever they want, wherever they want, right? And finally, we discussed just a few points. It was more of an introduction to learning, but digital learning is a lot more than the 6 topics that we discussed. And this is just a snapshot of what the future of learning is, what digital learning is. And I will share my coordinates at the end of this webinar, and whoever would like to learn more about digital learning, would like to know more about digital learning, we can always catch up, right? And that's about the presentation. Now moving on to the main highlight of the evening, the panel discussion, right? Let me just stop sharing my screen. Yeah. Now I would like to invite our elite panelists for the discussion. But before we get into the discussion, I'd like to introduce each of our esteemed panelists. Our first panelist is Mr. Mukund Jagirdar. Mr. Jagirdar is an HR veteran with over 3 decades of extensive HR experience in areas like performance management, organizational development, change management, employee engagement, learning and development, and industrial relations. He's currently the General Manager HR at ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel, and he is also the chairman of the HR committee at DCCIA. He also shapes the future HR leaders as guest faculty at several management institutes. Our second panelist is Dr. Ujjal Bhattacharjee. Dr. Bhattacharjee has a rich experience of over 2 decades in areas like competency-based HR practices, leadership development, change management, talent management, and industrial relations. He currently serves as the HR Director, India and ASEAN at Foseco, which is a part of Vesuvius PLC. He has published several papers in reputed management journals and has also been a keynote speaker at several management institutes as well as leadership forums. He was named as one of the most influential HR leaders in India by the World HRD Congress. Our final panelist is Mr. Abhijit Parlikar. Mr. Parlikar has extensively worked as a strategic HR professional for over 2 decades in areas like organizational growth, culture building, succession planning, and change management. He has a strong passion for coaching and mentoring people and helping them deliver their best. As Senior General Manager, he currently handles HR, IR, and admin functions at John Deere Pune Works, which is John Deere's largest manufacturing facility in India. He has won several internal as well as external accolades, such as the Business Excellence Award at the India Brand Slam Awards, Torchbearer of Values Award from John Deere, Founders Award from John Deere, to name a few. And finally, our moderator for the evening is Mr. Govind Ramchandran. Govind is the founder and CEO of Ergo Talent Solutions, my boss. And Ergo Talent Solutions is an organizational and human capital consulting firm based in Bangalore. Govind is a thought leader in the HR space with over 25 years of global corporate experience. His exceptional expertise has been sharpened in some of the mightiest temples of the industry, including Royal Bank of Scotland, Avaya, R.R. Donnelley, and Nestle. His HR prowess comprises various aspects of HR, including human capital strategy, talent acquisition and retention, employee engagement, managing HR through change and M&As, performance management, and total rewards. For the benefit of the audience, the panel discussion will go around for 45 minutes, post which we will also have a Q&A. I request everyone in the audience to make use of the Q&A option on Zoom to post your questions and comments during the discussion. On completion of the discussion, I will put forward your questions and comments to the panelists for their views. I now invite Govind to take over the proceedings.
Hi, thank you, Sean. Very good afternoon. First, I would like to thank Mr. Hari Srivastava. He was my professor during my college days, and he's also one of the well-wishers for giving this opportunity to host this particular webinar in association with DCCI. So thank you, sir. And also I want to thank the entire staff of DCCI for arranging the entire program in a better way. Well, in terms of the subject, I think already Sean given some heads up. So pretty much we are all aware of what is this digital learning is all about. So I'm not going to take much time again explaining that. And I'm personally very happy that we have three very senior HR leaders with us today, Mukund, Ujjal, and Abhijit. In fact, I'm happy that they somehow managed to get some time to attend this webinar, and also imagine this is the middle of the week. So thank you to all the panel members. Now, the presentation that Sean showed made one thing very clear to all of us, right? Digital learning is the future of learning. The traditional, the so-called classroom training, or what we call the in-person training, is going to be a big challenge in the current situation. Not only in the current situation, as Mr. Srivastava mentioned, I don't know, maybe for next year or two, we may need to get used to the new way of learning. Now, forget about the adults like corporates, right? I mean, some of us may have some hesitation to adopt to or adapt this learning, but look at what's happening at global level. Kids, small kids, students, almost everyone is adapting to the digital learning. So I personally don't see it's going to be a major challenge for the corporates because it's the need of the hour. And also based on our interaction with clients, right? The kind of clients we have there across industries, and also the regular interaction with corporate leaders, it very clearly indicates organizations which has got the so-called digital learning platforms. I'm sure you have heard about terms like LMS and LXP, right? Learning Management System and Learning Experience Platform. These are the organizations has seen a very significant quantum leap in terms of learning in the current situation. So companies are really getting the benefit who are already adopted digital learning, and some of the organizations who are kind of behind the curve trying to cope up or trying to catch up with those people. So digital learning is going to be the future of learning. And also I want to share some of the statistics before I go to the panel with some questions. Look at the online education or online learning business as such. LinkedIn Learning, they recently published a report saying that due to this Corona situation, almost like 3x increase in the learning time spent. So that means people are learning a lot. Of course, many of the folks are working from home. Probably they are having lots of free time because nowadays people are not traveling much. So people are spending those productive times in learning. So LinkedIn Learning has reported 3x increase. And there's something called MOOCs, right? The massive open online courses. So there are key players like Coursera, Udemy. These folks reported anywhere between, let's say, 600% increase in the course enrollment for Coursera, and Udemy got almost 400% increase in the course enrollment. So this is a huge number. These people are making good business sense. But what is the most important thing for us is employees, individuals are taking the ownership. So globally, it's not that employees are depending anymore on the corporates for training. So there lots of ownership is happening at individual level. So people can go and enroll for any course online. So many programs are free. Some programs, if you want to get a certificate, then you need to pay for it. So if you look at the whole scenario, people are moving towards digital learning. And if the way we are envisaging the future, this is going to be the new norm. And we all will be in a way forced to get into digital learning, whether we like it or not. Now, coming back to the panel discussion, we have three eminent HR leaders. So each one of them represent a multi-billion-dollar global enterprise with huge employee headcount and presence across geographies. Now, with Corona situation, it's kind of thrown a spanner in the works, and it's really pushed us into the digital learning. So I would like to start with the first question to this panel. In terms of the current situation, how has the industry been coping up with? Especially individually, you each have your own experience. So it will be great if we could hear from you. So I'll keep it open. Anyone can answer that. I think Ujjal, you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks, Govind.
Yeah. Ujjal, I think you're still on mute.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to just answer to your question. In the current scenario, definitely the COVID and the allied, the constraints actually definitely push people for digital platforms. And but I would like to just give a recap that that the digital learning, the industry 4.0 and associated, the learning 4.0, what we talk about. Many companies have started already acting on in last at least couple of years, which actually the COVID has put in sort of acted like a catalyst to then people started adopting some of the digital platform much faster than they were originally planning or anticipating or budgeted. Certainly the COVID situation, because of the lockdown and various other constraints, and even after the phase-wise opening the lockdown, we have seen that majority of the engagement happened and the development of employee through the training and development through the the virtual or this digital media. Not only that, also the customer training in terms of educating the customer and giving the product information, etc., which has also been used digital platform quite a lot, where the sales representatives or the technical people or R&D guys, they were all traveling and explaining. That has been actually replaced by this digital platform. It has been done very well. It has been well received and fantastic. The feedback has been received.
Good to know that. Good, that's really great, Ujjal. Mukund, would you like to share any of your experience?
Yeah, definitely. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to all the HR fraternities, I would say, who have joined this session of this learning, future learning and 4.0. See, now 4.0, what we say 4.0 digital learning and industrial revolution type of things we are talking. There are revolutions we have seen in 17th, 18th century, 19th and 20th century and thereon. We started with the, you can say, industries with the steam engines and you can say power loom. Then we started with mass production with the electrical help. Then we started with electronics and IT computers, basically PLC driven. And now we are into fully electronics, web-based, digital and virtual and augmented. So all these phases, I think one angle I would like to give in a different manner, the person or the employee who has got around 30 or 40 years of experience in this Indian industrial scenario could very easily visualize how the phases have changed and how industries have coped up with it. Because with any change and every change, it never happened that industries have failed. That is the beauty of Indian industry and the employees of the industry and the management working pattern, I would say. Because now what we say virtual learning and augmented reality and virtual reality, this and digital learning is a part, we can divide into two patterns or two segments or two sections. Basically, one is for the management team and another is for the non-management employees. It is definitely measurable in terms of the management team or employees whom we can give digital learning, which he can take anywhere in the world at whichever time is suitable for. But similarly, those who are the operational online on shop people, because why I'm saying this, because we are all basically, I hope in this today's webinar is connected to manufacturing setups. So IT and service sector, it's a different pattern of working altogether. Manufacturing is you can say 60% or 70% of the employees are on the shop floor and 30% on the office or support services type of thing or strategic area of work. So for them, learning and digital learning would become very effective tool to update with the technology, to review the what they have learned, and to measure the results what they have learned out of. These are the things. Whereas when it goes to the shop floor level, digital learning has got some, impact would be positive, but you will get little late because it depends on the segment of the industry where you are working. The requirement of digital learning in independent segment is different. So, for example, I am working in steel industry. It is huge, heavy, and large scale of industry and highly employee centric oriented industry. Whereas similarly, service industries are employee centric, but automobile, or you can say electronics industry, or you can say white good industry, their pattern of working is altogether different. So augmented
Sorry to
reality type
interrupt.
of training would be beneficial in that particular area for digital, for the
Okay.
operational level, and as well as management level as well. So this
Okay.
is where I take it in this angle.
Okay. Thanks, Mukund. In fact, we will be talking in detail about the so-called shop floor uh,
Yeah.
training, especially in the digital learning perspective. Just a quick question to you. Right now, with all those challenges you are facing, are you still able to invest your time and energy on the L&D function? Are you still running any programs, or is it like going slow?
Yeah, that is a challenge right now what we are facing. But fortunately, ArcelorMittal has got a global academy of learning, and they
Okay.
have got all huge modules on each and every function. Soft skill, technical skill, safety, environment. You can say on any aspect for that matter. You
They're all
identify
online.
a topic, it is online, it is
Okay.
measurable, it is with the evaluation, and it is with the test as well. So that is happening across ArcelorMittal India and globally as well. However, for the engagement, I would say learning and engagement both goes hand in hand. When you want to really effective performance of the employee, he needs to be engaged, and some engagement activities needs to be done personally and physically.
Okay.
You have to connect people actually, and you have to get the things done in a event type of a thing, where there is a gap is increasing. Now people are not not meeting each other, and everything is on screen. So that connect and that affiliation and that team bonding makes a difference in the basically manufacturing setups. But
Got it.
however, I
That's
would
a
say
very
the learning process is effectiveness is not lost, frequency is little bit shattered.
okay. Good point, Mukund. Abhijit, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much, folks, today for inviting me for this webinar. I just wanted to go back to what Mr. Srivastava talked about when all of these things started as a context. However, the first thing first that I feel after the lockdown was declared, I think this was one of the biggest ego slaps that nature had unleashed on us. And, a lot of things changed. People started realizing that, most of the things can be done from home. Demystifying a lot of beliefs, especially on the manufacturing side. I have a little bit different view from what um, my earlier panelists talked about, especially Mr. Jagirdar. And most of the manufacturing people also started working from home. And of course, those people who have to be on the shop floor have to be on the shop floor. You cannot have people working from home who are responsible for taking out your production outputs and so on and so forth. Now, coming back to learning, especially when we talk about digital learning, I think whether it is COVID or no COVID, in our case, we had embraced digital learning long back. I think we have our John Deere University almost, we've completed a decade when we started our John Deere University way back in 2000 or maybe 2010 when it was very formally launched. And we had multiple courses based on multiple competencies. And that I think we had a very strong process of building the individual development plans for our employees. And there used to be discussions between managers and the employees. He used to put his development plans, and he had that ability to choose the courses based on the development plans that he has put in his performance development areas. And those were competency based, those were based on certain critical technical skills, or those were based on certain areas that we would like to build depth within the organization. And that has been in existence for quite a while now. Now, coming back to what Sean spoke about, the way in which digital learning is getting embraced by multiple organizations, we are not an exception to it. A lot of micro learning sessions in the recent past I have seen since the time we started the lockdown, and that really helped people to unleash the trainer within themselves. So we actually asked people to develop contents and deliver that on the multiple forums that we had. On the other hand, as far as our learning philosophy is concerned, we believe in blended learning, where we think that 70% of our learning will happen from the on the job training, whether it is working from home or physically working on the shop floor. 70% of your learning would come from on the job. 20% would come from your coaching and mentoring. So you might have coaches, you might have your own mentors from whom you would like to listen about the areas that you really care for. And 10% of your learning would really happen from the classroom. So that philosophy has been there always in our mind. So whatever classroom trainings that we are talking about was only the 10% part of it. And of course, I enjoyed even the classroom sessions and the personal touch that Mukund talked about, and I really enjoyed those sessions as well. However, in the recent past, because of the technologies, the way we have been adapting new tools like, let's say, Microsoft Teams, or for that matter, the current Zoom that we are talking about, has also helped to build a lot of personal connect, because you can see each other like we see each other right now. We can actually see each other and still make it very effective from the perspective of having that personal connection with each other. So overall, from that perspective, we have embraced the digital learning quite early. And in fact, the way I can explain it right now is we have certain mandatory compliance trainings, which are mandatory for all the employees, irrespective of whatever area he works for. So those are anyways digital trainings. And any training that we conduct as a part of the webinars also, which can help the employees in future, we do a recordings of those trainings, and those are available for the employees whenever they want and they want to go online and look for it. And in our university, we have tied up with a lot of digital learning partners, for example, Coursera. So there are multiple learning avenues which are available on Coursera, which we don't want to replicate the content or do duplicacy in content. So we just host them in our on our servers, and typically all those contents which are from very, very good university like Urbana-Champaign or a Harvard University or a Stanford University can be directly accessed through the digital learning platform that we have. And the employees have the ability to choose their time, the place, and the pace at which they would like to learn those. So that's the environment that we are working today. We are trying to adapt this to our shop floor also, which probably will take it up in our next questions, and I'll talk about that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Abhijit. I think it's an excellent point you made, and very happy to know that John Deere still imparting training, right? Nothing stops you guys from come out of that particular intervention. So that's really good. One observation based on the interaction we had with many industry leaders, of course, some of our own clients. The clients are nowadays not just only looking for digital learning platform, which kind of aggregates the content, right? They're also looking at the so-called personalized content, which is all about adaptive learning. So that is one observation we are seeing. And second, there are lots of organizations, especially in the current situation, started doing significant number of programs basically focused on upskilling or reskilling, right? Just to make the organization more efficient and productive, and especially in the current situation, that is very important. And on the other side, which is a very sensitive subject, right? There are lots of organizations probably going through a tough time, and they may have a potential, let's say, layoff situation or retrenchment. To avoid that, I could see the leaders and the HR leaders, especially, proactively looking at reskilling the employees so that they can move to different roles, or upskill them so that they can take additional responsibility. So we could see lots of these actions happening on the ground. And I'm talking more from the manufacturing as well as outside manufacturing also. So is there anything that specifically you guys are doing, especially let's say John Deere, Abhijit, are you doing any specific programs because of the Corona situation?
Not really because of the Corona situation, but I would say there are a lot of avenues that we are utilizing currently. For example, HackerRank or HackerEarth kind of assessments, which really helps you to assess the current level of the employees and whether they are really in tune to the technologies that you are currently looking for. And if not, then of course there are courses which are offered to those employees to make them employable in that sense. And we make sure that those trainings are imparted to the employees and they come back on track as far as their performance is concerned. Now, specifically on Corona, I think most of the contents that we currently have, including the interface that the employees used to have with the HR, we are trying to digitalize it. So all the policies, for example, related to learning or any other policies for that matter, can be accessed by the employees on their respective cell phones. And in fact, on the blue collar side also, most of colored employees have cell phones, which are smartphones. And we have had a couple of instances where we have tried to impart learnings through the online platforms, which can be accessed through the mobile phones, or so to say, smartphones. And the other important aspect that we started, this is strictly a classroom training, but what has happened due to the COVID situation is the number of participants has reduced significantly. So for example, in a typical batch size, if we were able to accommodate 20 people, we have reduced it to half, so 10 people. And we have increased the frequency of those trainings, and following the social distancing practices and all of the other areas. Currently, there are a couple of trainings which are going both for the blue collared as well as the white collared staff. One is developing depth. So we have included programs like engine testing and engine auxiliaries, and then hydraulics, and then whether it is automobile or tractors. The amount of electronics is increasing every new technology that is coming up with. The percentage of electronics has increased from, let's say, 40% to 60%. So from that perspective, the subject matter experts, both on the blue collared side as well as the white collared side, we are trying to develop. And those are strictly classroom trainings, but most of the content is then hosted on a website, which the employees can access, and they can access in their own times. However, there is a timeline given to them. So for example, within 45 days, you can complete this, let's say, 20 hours course, which is assigned to each and every one of them. And at the end of it, there is a test and there is an evaluation which happens. Even for our compliance training, there is an evaluation which happens to ensure that whatever content delivery that we are doing or hosting on our websites or the digital learning platforms, those are effective. So I think it's an amalgamation of both of those things. So you cannot strictly say that, I'll just stop everything and start doing something new. That doesn't happen likewise. You have to be amalgamating in a way that you keep the essence of it, and you still make people accountable for whatever they are supposed to do, from increasing their own potential and increasing their own competency levels by going through these trainings.
Excellent. Okay, so if you look at the Indian context, right, one of the key challenges that we foresee for digital learning is the internet bandwidth. In fact, as we speak, I'm sure some of us may be going through some of the challenges, right? Connectivity, we are not able to be there continuously for quite long time. So we do see the bandwidth, the internet bandwidth is one of the challenges for digital learning. Similarly, on the job training, I think Mukund also mentioned that personal touch, right? It's kind of gone now. You can't afford to have on the job training right now. So many companies, what they're doing, they're using augmented reality, virtual reality to train the people on various processes. Some organizations are able to do, and some are still discovering how to do it. So they're kind of struggling with that. On the other side, if you look at it, especially in the non-IT organizations, people across levels are not very comfortable interacting, especially let's say the video collaboration tools, right? It's still something they are trying to fix it. And there are lots of free tools available, but those free tools also come with various challenges. And one other challenge we are seeing the mindset of some of the business leaders. And I know few people in the past, they were not very comfortable going for digital learning, but right now the situation is different. Whether you like it or not, in a way you are forced to get into digital learning. So the so-called the mindset of some of the leaders also going through major change. So these are some of the challenges we see for digital learning. So maybe Dr. Ujjwal, have you come across any challenges in your organization or with your experience for digital learning?
Yeah, yeah. So see, today what you said is correct. We have been put in this situation because of the desperation. We don't have any alternative at this moment. It's a desperate move into the digital platform. So definitely the ways and means people are finding out. Yeah, so challenges basically in digital learning. First, the most important thing, and which I feel that one of the major concern will be that the availability of personality touch. Like if you see in a big university, etc., whenever we go or any kind of a courses we do, the faculty, the professor, actually creates a lot of impact in the class. Who is teaching you inside the class is absolutely makes a big difference. The person's presence, the person's the credibility, the way of handling questions, answering the issues, doing some kind of say giving some examples, that has a major impact. And I am currently evaluating and examining. It is too early to talk about the effectiveness or ROI at this moment, because this is completely, we are getting into a mode which has not been well tested at this moment. I remember long back, I have come across a report of one of the big 5 consulting company, and they talk about that the digital mode actually is not exciting. Again, that matter need to be more researched now in the current context, and many organizations and many institutes are currently already doing a lot of research and study in this perspective. Is it creating a lot of boredom? Is it distracting people? Is it actually creating that kind of an effectiveness and interest when the learning is long? See, initial few hours of learning has a different kind of a feeling because then the excitement is high. But the motivation for a digital platform, because I hear continuously the screen time, you must have also heard about the screen time fatigue. How you can, it's a part of the psychology, that how you can be so excited and motivated to speak to the screen continuously. Human touch, it's difficult to replace the kind of a feeling, the kind of a, the kind of understanding. I have, last year I have, studied in a university, and where, like we know, the kind of professors teaching us and their pedagogic style, etc., created the excitement and enthusiasm in entire participant. Actually, all of the students, all of us, we are so excited to listen every single word from that faculty. And the way he delivers, the way you he appreciates you, or he actually challenges you. So we need to see that the kind of a platform when we create is those factors are the software, even if it is actually having those features, or at least it is developed from that perspective that it reaches very close to that. Secondly, the discipline, the self-discipline is a big challenge. You don't get people many times. Sometimes you invite somebody, he forwards your request to somebody else who is completely irrelevant for certain programs. And when people are not administer based training, where you are really having some kind of a scientific training need identification, and then you are going for the training, versus I just feel to do something and I just do it. Okay, it is good that motivation is there to develop. But from an organizational context, so tomorrow I do some course on some web designing or something and all, maybe good for developing myself and doing some personal pursuit in future. But how in the organizational context it is helping me? So definitely one side it is increasing. The other side is the infrastructure. Today, with the infrastructure, as you talked about, the bandwidth and the connectivity and those kind of stuff is extremely becoming difficult. Even you have a traditional evaluation system of the Kirkpatrick model and all those stuff we talked about is actually getting questioned, as you already know, because we have to focus on improving performance and not measuring learning in the current context. So these challenges and these many questions are arising at this moment, and this particular concept of digital learning is evolving. But I'm very positive that we, by continuously research and development, we will be reaching very near to that and try to address, as we talked about virtual learning, augmented realities and all those stuff. However, what Mr. Mukund talked about is like example, you need to learn about the mechanics of a machine. Like a press machine, we are all coming from a industry and I have experience of that. A press, if you want to really learn a running of a press, of course, software part you can learn. But when you have to make a component, you have to really touch, feel, do the setting, do the measurement, test every parameters, open up. Almost to learn one machine, we have, long back we have done some kind of a digitalization and testing in Germany in one of the previous experience. There are 30 to 40 steps. Few are technology related, but it is all embedded technology. But other around 30 aspects are practical, where the person has to really do the setup. How we train that, how we create that kind of a setters, like we talk setters. They do a complete setup of the machine. That learning takes 6 months, and suppose these modules are 40 modules. When you become a certified setter, so that 30 I'm talking about, how we replace it, how we replace with digital training. So that is, these kind of questions are there. Maybe yes, of course, we will find out some kind of a virtual setup, etc. But still the touch and feel and instructor, somehow it has to be also factored into this whole thing. It will complement, definitely. That's my feeling. And these are the challenges, and we have to find this answer going forward.
Yes, no, absolutely, Ujay. I completely agree. I think there are certain low-hanging fruits, right? That probably at your level, at the leaders level, in India level, right? You can fix it. There are areas like, as you mentioned, if it's very intensive courses or programs, then probably that has to evolve over a period of time. I think to some extent, I think already somebody spoke about it, right? The virtual reality and augmented reality. So probably those things we address. So now this leads to the another question, which in a way Mukund already highlighted. So at certain level and above, people understand digital learning, they have access. So we are able to kind of provide all those platforms, especially manufacturing organizations, shop floor employees, right? The blue collar employees. So they also need to go through lots of training. And I think Mukund, you mentioned that. Our observation with our clients and the interaction, as I mentioned, many of these people, I think Abhijit mentioned, right? These people do have mobile phones. I mean, pretty much most of the folks that in the industry, they do have smartphones. So you can probably train them through that. There are organizations, interestingly, they kept something called learning kiosk, right? It's something on the shop floor. The employees can go and learn during the breakout session, right? And whenever they need. So it is something like your typical information kiosk. So it's kept, you have a system available so they can learn. Some organizations do have virtual assistant. They use Alexa to program it. So when somebody's doing particular process, the virtual assistant in a way helps the person how to navigate, how to move to the next level. So we are seeing innovative ways of addressing the shop floor employees. I would like to hear from Mukund, do you have any personal experience either in your organization or from your previous organization or through your industry connect? Is anything that people are doing differently, especially for shop floor employees?
What I have seen earlier also in few of the industries where I have worked and I have visited as well, basically automotive multinational industries. They have this chaos type of learning pattern available, where as Dr. Ujjwal was saying, if there needs to be has to undergo a training on digitally through chaos while he is on the operations actually when he is working there. So that chaos would be and is being used at times in some of the industries. Now, again, in the particular situation of COVID and Corona, cost is also playing very important role because industries have to divert a lot of energy, funds, and all for this area. And again, on this digital learning area. So priorities have been changing continuously. Basically, health of the employee, operations, sales, revenue,
okay,
and the technology. All this, combination of activities is becoming difficult challenge for the industries to how to cope up. But anyway, chaos would be the fastest solution for group learning, as we were doing in classroom. As Dr. Ujjwal again has said, same thing I was saying earlier also, ki some such learnings require human intervention and touch to understand, grasp, and some of the practical activities are activity based. So when you do it, you learn it better. When you see it, you further apply it, experiment it, success or don't success. So it may be a relearning. Again, the relearning process. So the effectiveness or maybe the impact of the learning would be, you can't say right now because we have not yet tested it at a larger perspective. That would be another thing. And I would say in this digital learning would be little bit, go aligned with the technical trainings, but less in the behavioral training. Because technical training, like commercial sales team could be given digital training for the new techniques of all this commercial finance and all. But however, in a quality type of thing, in operations, in technology, in automation, modernization, these areas makes a lot of difference. And cost again is a very important aspect for implementing the digital learning for the operational team. There, how I look at it, it's a challenge again. But yes, as earlier also industries have faced and come up, this will also, they have to have some solution and overcome it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this question is to Abhijit, since you have been using digital learning for quite a long time. How do you measure return on investment? Is there any particular method you do? Even before that, are you able to measure your return on investment on the digital learning platforms or any digital learning interventions?
See, first of all, there have been a lot of questions in the Q&A boxes that I'm seeing, which talks about effectiveness of this whole digital learning. See, first of all, we need to make sure that you're making our employees accountable for each and every aspect. Because see, it's not a small expense when we talk about digital learning specifically. Um, so the outcome perspective, there are a lot of modules that we have developed right now, uh, on which there are tests, there are evaluations which are happening there, and the results are then and there in front of you. So from the perspective of effectiveness of this whole digital learning, that is in front of you one as soon as you learn it, right? When you start responding to the questions which are coming in front of you. Now, return on investment perspective, when it comes to the shop floor specifically, which Mukund was talking about, we have initiated a AR and VR module for our wage employees, specifically the operators who are coming new, because we have a model where about 40 to 50% of our workforce is flexible. So every couple of years, you'll see a host of people who are joining us. And as a result of that, we need to come up with digital learning solutions for them. For example, their induction training. So the whole shop floor has been virtually simulated, and the operator can actually do assembly as one could do in the shop floor. And as a result of that, our learning time, or the overall time which is required for inducting an operator, has reduced by half. So now if you evaluate this from a cost perspective, some operator who used to spend 6 days in induction, now he spends only 2 days. So the 4 days of savings that has happened as a result of this can directly be seen on the shop floor with an additional 10 or 15 tractors coming out of the line. So that you cannot really measure from that perspective, but there are multiple ways in which you can look at it, which really is cost avoidance rather than cost saving. And from an overall perspective, I would say that we use multiple levels of screening, multiple levels of evaluations, multiple levels of demonstration of behavior that the employee does after going through these modules, which really certifies one, yes, whatever investments that we are doing for the employees on various fronts is giving you the results. And at the same point in time, it is also effective method of delivering whatever you wanted to. And as you mentioned rightly, sir, sometime back about millennials, they would, and I think Sean talked about it initially when there is a bite-sized learning. So most of our people, especially on the white collar side, those are millennials. So I would say about 40 to 50%, or in fact more than that, a little over 60% of our employees would be millennials. And they would like to see the learning in a way where they can get bite-sized learning and they can do it whenever they want. So that flexibility, while we have given that flexibility to them, but accountability is still remaining with them. That yes, there is a flexibility given, but I'm still accountable to make sure that I complete these courses and move on to the next level. And with the advent of new technologies and the thrust which we are putting on machine learning, or for that matter, even data analytics for that. There are multiple universities that we are hosting on our learning websites, and the people can actually go there, they can take the courses. And in fact, now we have types with a lot of major universities for PhDs and even doing specialized degrees in certain areas. So the return on investment can be seen with the way we are implementing the new projects, which are embracing the new technologies. And it takes a lot of time for people to learn that, and we are investing in that. And we are pretty happy with the way people have responded in the new times. And we think it's a worthwhile investment while we do the digitalization of the entire learning process.
So I think
On the wage side, coming back, we have also in the process of creating a Gurukul where there is a center that we are creating for our employees to get practical training, which is like a simulated line plus there is a physical line available along with the cut sections of our different products. So they can actually touch and feel the product as well while they undergo that small training, which is a physical training. But again, we are restricting the number of people given the current situation.
okay. I think you really made excellent points, Abhijit. In fact, our experience also from the digital learning platforms, as you know, most of these platforms use artificial intelligence, machine learning, and analytics, right? So in a way that makes the measurement also to that extent feasible. In fact, these models like Kirkpatrick model or Phillips model can be used to evaluate your rate of so-called expectations or rate of investment, right? So those things are possible in digital learning. But as you rightly mentioned, you need to have the entire process very well mapped. So there are many things you may probably do it offline. So how you will put all these efforts, right? The result in one platform, that makes a huge difference.
So
Tracking
one very important
platform,
aspect, Govind, is the entire learning system as a module, right? So right from the click of a button, you should be able to know how much time that employee has spent
yes,
on various subjects, on the compliance trainings, on the various technical trainings, on the competency trainings. And then overall, while you talk about, in fact, all of these data points are used during our succession planning and talent discussions as well. And there are multiple touch points which we look at while we take complete decisions on talent mobilizations or any succession planning kind of decisions that we would like to take. This data is very useful while you consider those decisions.
absolutely. Great. So now, considering the time, so I'm going to have one last question. This is something I'm sure many of the HR folks who are watching this may find it relevant.
Govind, my request is just to make sure that we give due importance to all the questions
So
which have
definitely, that's
come.
I'm just going to
I
wind
think
up.
maybe you can take it up separately and mail it to DCCI so
Yeah.
that we are giving due importance to all the
Yes,
questions.
absolutely, Abhijit. So I'm going to complete the one last question. Post that, Sean will let us know the questions that we got, then we can answer. I mean, whoever from the panel wants to respond to it. So this last question from me is on your advice, especially your senior HR leaders, right? So there could be a HR leader, somebody really wants to implement this digital learning in his or her organization. And in this current situation, any investment, right, people are going to scrutinize very, very thoroughly. So it's not an easy thing that people can spend. But having said that, we also understand learning is something you can't stop. People say the moment you stop learning, you stop growing. Whether it is organization or individual, it is applicable to everyone. So we understand this. So what will be your advice to any HR leader or L&D leader, if he or she wants to take it up and wants to implement digital learning, how they should approach to get that so-called budget approval from the respective business leader? Maybe Ujjal, you want to?
Yeah. So Govind, I will just say in one line only that protecting the learning budget is most important, and tell management either we protect or regret it later.
That's very nicely said.
That's it.
Great. I also agree. In fact, at the end of the day, the business looks at the value. If you are a learning platform or any digital learning initiative, if it can bring tangible value to the business impact, it could be like a return on investment, or it could be increase in productivity or increase in retention. I'm sure the business will make the budget available.
Yeah, you see the business in India. I'm really happy to see that what we pre-COVID we thought, or during the COVID we thought about the business situation in India. I'm sure the participants plus attendees or even the panel will confirm that the business is now bouncing back, and the kind of assumptions we made that point of time, we are seeing that yes, I think the mechanism, the government initiative, and the industry effort, and various chambers and the organizations, the all round effort to tackle with these COVID-related challenges, we see there is a complete improvement in the business scenario. And
Very good to hear that.
That means we should not be having a very short sight at this moment and narrow mind in terms of just saving some pennies and stop the future growth and development.
Absolutely.
Talent and engagement has become far more important in the current situation, because many people have forecasted, because of COVID, there will be a lot of, the scarcity of jobs, etc. You see, still there is attrition. I attended one other conference, and there we talked about that how some companies are currently finding that lot of talent movement. It means the actions and activities have started. We are seeing that is already in our businesses, and we have to immediately start exploring the new ways of learning and development and adopt that what we talk about, the new normal. And absolutely we need to take necessary steps forward. So anybody who is having any sense would try to do the protection of budget. When we do our strategy planning for next 3 years to 5 years, some companies that do it, we must not cut any development budget, which should be normal. In fact, if we have much more insight, and I think every company, HR leaders and the business leaders are deliberating internally based on their business challenges and the realities. Many companies are currently actually getting into a new segment, new business segment, and they have to reskill people. They have to develop people in a different the perspective, and that calls for a even additional budget in certain areas where we stop something, which we reduce something, we add something. Budget need to be allocated for the digital platforms, because many companies may not have the digital platforms so far. Many companies may not have the Microsoft Teams or Office 365 license for all the users. So the servers, the kind of the course content development, many companies have to invest very heavily to start with. So there is no question of cutting budget. Of course, creating the modules and creating all those kind of applicable things, not only for what I talked about from the experience of our company, in fact, that the customer training and development also was very vital, parallel to employee training and development.
Absolutely.
It was business driven. It helped the business quite a lot. And without a single travel to the customer location in those 2 months when it was locked down, we could actually do a lot of development, training, explaining our products, technology, solution partnering, which was a good experiment, and we are really amazed to see the result and outcome and the feedback which we received.
So, couple of perspectives from my side, Govind, around this, and I completely share what Ujjwal was talking about. And this is not about only learning as such; it is about everything. So, in our case, also there is a AR and VR platform that we have launched called as Anubhuti, which was for our sales team as well as our customers. So you can actually go and look at the model, and you can see a virtual model of the tractor which you would like to buy. And even on the collection side, on our we have a financial services. We had launched online collections. There's a specific software that we launched where within the lockdown period also our collections was absolutely on track. Coming back to the development part of it, I think it is criminal to cut any development budget in this current scenario. Point A, because there are a lot of new skills which you will be missing out on if you don't learn them. Even at a senior leadership levels, people are trying to embrace data analytics, for example, as a new way of working, and it has really resolved a lot of issues that people are facing on day-to-day basis relating to making decisions. So it is making your life easier, and therefore people are embracing that. And to embrace that, it is essential that we do not cut any development budget, point number one. However, you need to be generous while you talk about budgets, but you need to be ruthless when you talk about accountability.
Yes.
So if you don't see any accountability, of course, there are actions on the other side as well. But for me, it is really criminal to cut any development budgets. Yes, you need to be mindful of what you are trying to invest in. And rudimentary trainings that that we used to do earlier, which doesn't hold any ground. Maybe you can change the content, you can change the way you deliver those, but don't cut the development budgets for sure. And invest in newer platforms like Microsoft Teams or some of the other platforms, where it is not only going to help you on the learning side, but also on running of your day-to-day business. So I think those are my submissions when it comes to the development budget and cost relating to the digital platforms.
Thanks, Abhijit. I think you made excellent points. I think pretty much we seems to be overshooting the time. It's already 4:30.
We should cover some question answer, Govind, because a lot of people have been putting the questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, we should cover the questions, which is also very important. And I only say that when we talk about the budget, etc., a CFO, when he was presenting the entire thing and the budget, what is coming from the HR, so he said, no, you have put so much money for the training and you are spending. And what happens if these people leave? Because I find a lot of people have been leaving. He says, no, the HR guy says that, no, I'm not worried, those who are leaving. I'm worried if they are staying with us, then what happens? So that is the relevance of the budget.
Absolutely. I think well said. That's a very good example. Great. So what I'll do now, I will request Sean to quickly check the Q&As, and he can post the question to the panel. Whoever wants to pick up, please try to be short in answer because we don't have much time. So we will try to do justice for all the questions if possible. If not, offline, we can reach out to them. We can drop a mail with all those answers. So Sean, could you please check and let us know? Maybe you can pick the top 3-4 questions.
Sure. I will do that. So one question comes from Manash Bhattacharya. He says his question to the panel is, how do you engage the target group in virtual training sessions? How do you keep them engaged?
Interesting question.
So my response to that is very clear. You know, it's like in a classroom sessions also, it is very difficult to engage sometimes, because there will be always some holiday seekers, some serious learners, some curious learners who will be there even in the normal classrooms, and those are definitely there in the virtual classrooms as well. I think what will engage them is again coming back to the point on accountability of yes, there is a training getting delivered, but is it also giving them some kind of an opportunity to evaluate regularly in some intervals, and then the trainer is also asking questions and trying to engage from an activity perspective. So I think the way we should do it is it should be both a blend of theoretical aspects as well as the activity based learnings, even if it is a virtual course.
Wanted to also add here that engagement comes from actually the need which is actually fulfilled. When any training program, which we see either it is virtual or it is a classroom or any other mode of this training, the engagement comes from when the participant sees a clear connection with the training imparted versus the needs, the competency gap. If it is well linked and it is well adopted, or it is need comes from the person who is attending, automatically the engagement comes in. If it is a good to have training, certain few point of time, it is very difficult to even attract the participants. But if one sees the results, the value in it for himself or herself to really grow, develop, and do the existing and future task effectively, the engagement comes in. Also, it depends up to a great extent to communicate that properly. When we communicate the need properly, and also there is a well embedded understanding, integrated approach, automatically the employee or anybody who's a participant adopts it. And of course, how you make it interesting, how you really put in the relevant items, it's also very important. If for a level A participant, I put level C kind of a aptitude and the content and all, then A will not like it. We need to see that how it is relevant, how we connect with the need, and also the target and focus group. Engagement will be certainly higher.
Good. Thanks, Ujjwal and Abhijit. Your next question, Sean?
Right. The next question is from Suraj Sonavne. He says that, in the traditional setup, we need, and we, as per audits, etc., we require to provide evidence of learning programs, right? So traditionally, they would make records of TNI, training calendar, effectiveness, documentation, etc. So his question is, how do you convert all of these evidences in documentation form when you move digital?
I think from my perspective, it's the most easiest way, because whenever you do a digital training, the documentation is automatically created. You don't have to really bother about it. And,
it's more easier than.
Yeah, it's much more easier. It's much
Absolutely.
more easier, and you can, in fact, day, date, time, and the number of participants, all of that, and their evaluations are also there in the digital platform whenever you go for those kind of things.
And also it is environmental friendly.
Environment friendly. Yeah, you don't have to maintain any papers. And most of the important areas is you can actually go for paperless audit also whenever there are audits relating to ISO 9000 or OSHAs or those kind of things. And I would then pass it on to Mukund. Mukund, go ahead.
Yeah, to add this to Mr. Sonwane's question, see, there are modules which have got a pattern of training. Then there is, again, on the particular slot by slot, on the session of the training, there is a review, there is a questionnaire, and there is a options also for the answers what you have learned, and that gives you the rating also, whether you have learned that or what percentage you have learned out of that learning. And if it is below 50, then he asks you to relearn. Yeah. There you get the yourself understood. If you are not engaged with the training, you will feel, yeah, and I have to get minimum at least 50 to get clear that training and to get through that training, because otherwise it will reflect in my training calendar and performance. Yeah, I have identified this area, I have been given training, but I was not engaged and I could not score above 50. So that means you have not focused while learning. So that mechanism is always there. So that need not to be, because in classroom such where there is a chance of playing with the system, you can say all okay, and then nobody is going to measure. Whereas here it is immediate and actual.
Absolutely. Good. Sean, next question, please.
Sure. How many more questions can we take?
I think I need to be in another meeting in next 5 minutes. Probably
last
we can
one question.
one more.
Okay, one last.
Will go.
Yeah, let's take a last question. This is a slightly different question though, from Shubham. He comes from a different background, so he wants a specific question to his industry. And he says, how do you take care of learning needs of front-end staff in the retail sector?
Yeah, so maybe I can try to answer that because in our case we also have a huge sales and marketing organization, and we also have a non-banking financial institution which does a wholesale and retail credit for our customers, and again these are the guys who are responsible for maintaining the sales as well as the collections. So for them also, recently when we had multiple digital platforms which have been launched, and I think the best way to do it is giving them specific tasks and specific areas of development, and at the same point giving them the content which you are looking for, and you can host that on your digital platform, whatever you have right now.
Absolutely. I think just to add to Abhijit's point, especially for the retail sector, digital learning is much more effective, especially the field staff, if you look at them, because everybody carries nowadays smartphones and you can actually push lots of programs. We spoke about the micro learning. It's one of the favorite for many of the sales folks, right? I mean, they can on the go, can just read and they can always come back to the previous session. So it is in a way more suitable for sales folks, these so-called micro learning and nuggets we call in the digital learning parlance. Great. So I think we pretty much covered all the points. I know we have very limited time. We already overshot our time. So let's do one thing. What are the questions we have? We will reach out to you offline, right? Sean will connect with you to provide the feedback. We have to collect it or connect with our panelists. We can connect with them, take the feedback, and we'll share it with you, right? So that's what we can plan now. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank all my three panelists. Excellent discussion.
I see some of the question, Govind. I think we should definitely answer that, like how do we prepare the budget? And there are a few very, very important questions which are still, I just looked at the flip through the questions which have come through.
Okay, so you have any favorite question you want to ask, you can please ask right now.
No, I would say that this question must be answered, very relevant question. Basically, when you go into the budget, or there are other few questions. So you all must answer that. What I'm trying to say, after it is over, please compile it and make sure.
We are making that commitment. We will
make sure that everybody who has put in a question here, he should be answered individually by you, by whoever is compiling it. It is very important because I find a lot of people have stayed beyond time. Still, a lot of people are staying with you. Generally, it is not the trend. When the time is over, 75% people leave. But here, I still find a lot of people are still staying with the program. Out of close to 42 people, 32 people stayed. Till beyond that, 29 people are still staying with you. So that way, I think they are looking forward to their answers, which should be coming from you.
So definitely, we're very happy to hear that, and we will definitely share the response with them. Not only that, even offline, anybody wants to reach us for any new questions, please feel free to do that. In fact, we'll be sharing this deck, which has got our coordinates. You can always drop a mail later, not that right now you should have the question. Maybe you can come tomorrow or anytime. We'll be happy to answer that. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Haripriya Srivastava for providing this opportunity to interact with the Deccan Chamber of Commerce, Industries and Agriculture. I want to thank all the member organizations who are participating and our panelists, again, for taking the time in spite of the busy schedule, as it was the middle of the week, so much of the work they just left behind. They wanted to come and share their wisdom and knowledge. And I could personally say that I really enjoyed this session. Somebody was talking about engaged audience. I don't know, I pretty much engaged in the whole session. I could see the equal level of energy and engagement from the panelists. So it was a really excellent session. So I thank DCCIA for providing this opportunity and the panelists, and most importantly, the audience. In fact, some of you are still staying back. I really thank you for taking your time to attend this. As we mentioned, we'll be happy to answer any question. Not only the questions are here, I mean, whatever you mentioned here, even outside this session, please feel free to reach out to us. And at the end of the day, sharing knowledge, it's kind of one key thing for any HR folks, right? At the end of the day, by sharing knowledge or multiplying, there's nothing that we are going to lose. So once again, thank you very much. I pass it on to Sean to give a formal vote of thanks. So with that, we can close this webinar. Thank you, and over to Sean.
Thank you, Govind. Thank you to all the panelists for this wonderful discussion. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, I hope you would have found this webinar extremely informative and useful. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. The 1.5 hours, I think, is very fruitful and insightful for everyone. For further details on digital learning, like Govind said, we will circulate this deck and our coordinates will be put on the deck. So in case you have any questions related to digital learning, how do you implement digital learning platforms, etc., please feel free to reach out to us, and we will be more than happy, like Govind said, to share the knowledge and expertise that we have with whoever needs it. We will also host a recording of this webinar on our website. and we will share the link with all the participants and the panelists, and we'll put it up on social media as well. So you could pass that around to your people in your network so that they can also draw benefits of this webinar in their organizations. Thank you once again, everyone, and you have a great evening. Thank you from DCCIA as well as ErgoTalent, and I hope your time was well spent. Thank you so much. Look forward to more interactions.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Faculties, and thanks, Govind, Sean, and all the faculty members and the HR members, those who have joined. On behalf of Deccan Chamber of Commerce and Industry Agriculture, again, thank you all for participating, and thanks ErgoTalent to conducting and hosting such a need-based training or webinar or session for the HR professionals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jagirdarji. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dr. Ujjal. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
And
Abhijit.
take care, all take care utmost
Take
for
care.
the COVID
Remain
and Corona and your team and family as well. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Govind. Thank you, Mr. San.
Thank you,
Keep well.
Mr.
Have a great evening, all of you.
Sean.
Thanks.
Just
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.